11 plus went to this Jesuit school, and the man, the Jesuit priest, we had a Jesuit priest who took the young boys football team, the 11 years of age, team. So you can imagine young boys, and he used to come into the showers with us after, and he used to enjoy this thing. He'd have his whistle on a cord, and he'd use the cord to whip us in the shower, And we were terrified of this man. It's such an abuse of power because, as a young Catholic boy, 11 years of age, a priest is a god, and also you won't talk to your parents about things like that. You don't mention sex. This is 1961. Nobody mentioned sex in 1961 in their homes. So it's that mixture of power and sex, and this is going on. I hated this priest. It wasn't just that either. I had a mate, a really good friend, and suddenly he was throwing a strop in class or something. I don't know, just being a boy, And this same priest hammered him with his fists, hammered him about the head using his fists, and a shocking assault it was. We were just absolutely terrified, staring at the scene. It was awful. Anyway, when I was in like the 5th or 6th form, I can't remember, my brother, the eldest in our family, he'd been to that school. He was the only other person in our school. And he said to me, and I can use the name because he died of a ripe old age, this paedophile priest. He said, is that Perv Adamson still there? Now, the interesting thing about that is he said that to me, and Billy had been at that school 10 years previously. So for 10 years, this priest was at it. For at least 10 years, he was allowed to take boys of 11 years of age and take them into the showers and whip them. Everybody knew it was going on.
Did it go beyond the showers, do you think?
I believe it did do, but it didn't to me. I was lucky. I was poor and smelly, so I was very lucky. I have heard it went beyond that, but I can't vouch for that. I didn't see it.
The stammer, which you've had to fight, I mean, even now, were you given any kind of therapy for it?
No, not at all. There's an interesting episode in Cracker where the guy goes on about, I've tried therapy. I don't need to stammer if I talk like this, but talking like this makes me look like a dickhead, And so it's easy to hide the stammer, but the problem is the way you speak is part of your personality. I am the man I am, and part of the reason I am the man I am is the way I speak. I don't want to hide the stammer and appear to be an idiot.
John Updike, the American novelist who had a stammer, there's an essay he wrote called "Getting the Words Out," in which he suggested that it was actually quite useful for a writer because it made you aware of a word selection of how important language is.
Yeah. Well, as a word switcher, I was always a word switcher. What you do, because it's essential, you need alternative words. You have a vocabulary that's wider than anybody else's. At school, and I had to know alternative words. Oh my God, there's a word with a T coming up now. Can I substitute that for a word beginning with an L, say? And I could, because I'm having a bad time on my T's that particular day. But I've got another word here, thank you very much, So I was a good writer as a child even. I was, I knew I was good. As I say, I'd do essays in class and, the teacher would always read them out. I used to love it. But part of the reason I was good was because I had a vocabulary, a much wider vocabulary than anybody else in that class. And it was essential I had it, so...
And you're clearly very bright, not just from your plays, but unusually for a dramatist, you've taken part in both Celebrity University Challenge and Celebrity Mastermind.
Yes.
Was your brain recognised at school?
In the primary school it was, yeah, because it's, if you are bright at a primary school, you're up near the top of the class, aren't you? But in the other school, all the kids there were bright. So I was just... I did okay at school,
Most young boys on Merseyside in particular, they want to be a footballer when they grow up, but was that your career ambition?
No, yes, when I was young, but you suddenly learn that you're not good. You're just not good enough, you don't want it enough, and also it's then you had to be brave on the football pitch. People said to you, I'm going to get you after the game. It wasn't an idle threat. They would get you after the game. So there was all that to contend with. And I just wasn't brave enough for that, you know.
And you were desperate to get out of school, were you?
Yeah. I was away when I was 16. As soon as I turned 16, I was away, you know, and started working some insurance company, you know, which is boring. But yeah, I'd passed the 11 plus. Boys who pass the 11 plus don't get their hands dirty, you know. So all I wanted to do was be a plumber or an electrician like everybody else I knew, or a bricklayer. They were the people I knew. But no, I was in this insurance office, you know, bored stiff, you know. So.
Do you regret now leaving at 16?
I think I had to leave. I just hated the school. I was unhappy, you know, really unhappy. So I had to go. You know, I had to go. But I think it would have been different if I'd been born rich and posh, and it would be, if I had my life over again, I would choose to be born very rich and very posh, you know, and go to university and have a gap year. I would love all that. Thank you very much. But that wasn't for me then. You know what I mean?
There's a theory, as you know, a huge number of dramatists have come out of Liverpool. Willie Russell, Alan Bleasdale, yourself, Alan Owen before that, many others. There is a theory that to an outsider, it's the vividness of that speech, because in Liverpool, they speak in that metaphorical, rather teasing way, and that's good for dialogue, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but it isn't dialogue, you know. It's nothing to do with dialogue. I hate fancy dialogue, you know. It's to do with the ability to tell a story, you know. So it's that really, and I know that an awful lot of writers there, but I think it's more to do with the Irishness and the Welshness and the Scottishness, you know, the Celtic tradition of the bard and all that. You know, I think it's more to do with that, and it's also to do with seizing opportunity. That, you know, there are lots of sportsmen who came out of that city, but it's because here's an opportunity, you've got to seize it. Because, you know, they aren't there. They aren't, you know, the opportunities like that don't come along very often. I know you always bang on about that song, New York, New York. You know, if you can make it there, you'll make it anywhere. That's absolute rubbish. If you can make it in Hull or Grimsby or Liverpool, you can make it anywhere. But if you live in London and you haven't had a play done in London, it's because you're crap. You know, everybody gets a play on in London, all these pubs and things, you know. It's harder in these small towns, you know.
And you've grown up through the 50s, which is quite a depressed decade, post-war, but which you've referred to earlier, but Liverpool in the 60s, but you get the Beatles, you get Bill Shankly and Liverpool and all that. So that energy, that must have been a good thing to be there for.
It was in a way, but I was only 14 or 15 when the Beatles started. And I think to enjoy it, you know, to have the swagger and pull all the women, you had to be in your 20s, I think. So I was only a young teenager. So all sorts of things were happening, and the team started to win things, you know. And so it was great to be a Scouser then, yeah, but it would have been interesting to be a Scouser in his 20s, you know. But to me, it seemed that it seemed to be part of the order of things, that great things happened in our city. You know, I wasn't surprised by anything. Jerry and the Pacemakers, the Beatles, you know. It seems an interesting time, but I wish I'd been a wee bit older. I'd have enjoyed it more, I think, you know.
And you talked about not having a gap year. There's a sort of gap, couple of decades really, between leaving school and then your first, the first TV writing credit. You're in your early 30s. So insurance, in the insurance office, and then take us through after that. What happened?
Oh, bus conductor, chemical worker, car worker. Oh God, everything. I tried everything, you know. But it's great. It's you know one of the best things I ever did. Worked in a car factory, and you'd go in there, and you've got 10 hours ahead of you, you know, on the night shift. That's when, you know, you'd have all these academics talking about alienation. You know, the Marxist principle of alienation. You know, I knew it. You know, I was there. I was that man that Marx was writing about on this factory floor for 10 hours. You know, so it was wonderful for me. You know, and I've used it. I've always used that. I know. You know, I know. I can understand, because at that time as well there were strikes everywhere. You know, and I kept saying, well, how come nobody goes out on strike towards the end of a shift, you know, because you're not going to, you know. But if you walk in and you've got 10 hours nights ahead of you and something kicks off, the temptation to say, "Oh, sod it, let's go," you know. I understood it all. Not ridiculous. I understood what that meant. Alienation meant, you know, to be a robot, to be a paid robot. I understood it. Yeah.
And in your head, did you have an ambition, a career? And were you thinking about writing?
When I left school, I thought it would be nice to be a journalist, but there was no advice. There was absolutely no way. So I just went into an office, you know. But I really wanted to be a journalist because I knew I could write, and that's not arrogance. You know it, don't you? You know if you can phrase a sentence, you know. But the thing that changed my life was we had these builders in, and a guy who's a member of the Scotland Road Writers Workshop. So he saw in me, you know, frustration and rage and all that. So he took me along, and that's when I started writing properly, you know. So it was good.
And what were the first things you wrote there?
I wrote all sorts of short stories and poems, really bad poems. You know, I always say there are loads of bad poets because it only takes 10 minutes to